Hey, alright, well, I wanted to show you a little bit of how it goes when we start to create a new map, and my dog is getting jealous already of my involvement here with Unity. Oh my goodness, Toodles. So this is a package from PolyArt Studio that I licensed in the Unity Asset Store. It costs about $70 to license this asset, and then once you do, you can use it in your own games and stuff. So what I was gonna start off doing is just the basics. As you notice, there's already some colors to the map, and there's basic grass as a the cool thing about Unity though is its terrain painting capabilities. So if we come over here, notice hold shift to erase details. See if we can erase the existing grass. Let's make our brush a little bit larger because I want to get some of this grass out of the way, just to give us a little clean area to build on. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make this cliff face not so bland, and I'm going to fly over here and show you like what our goal is. When we're done, it's going to look something like this one that I've dressed up. So first thing I like to do is lay down the base colors, and we do that by hopping over to the paint texture tool of the Unity terrain tool, and I've loaded in a few textures here. These are moderate resolution. I mean, they're not 4K quality or anything like that, but that's fine. So we'll start with just see how this looks right here, because what we want is we want to create a natural look. Some of this just doing it here around the edges breaks up the contrast between the top level of the base paint, and this is really, I guess, what you could call our first layer. And so there, I've got that got that painted out a little bit. And you can do cool things. You can blend your terrain and do all kinds of stuff like that. Blend your terrain tool. The next is I'm going to hop over here to Grass 1. And Grass 1 is currently set at a tile settings of 2.2. So these tile settings, I'm going to crank this up to 5.5. On your terrain tool and a piece of texture, you have some settings that allow you to basically adjust the display resolution of this stuff. So I'll show you like what this looks like at a 1:1. It's native ratio, and I'm going to go ahead and okay, I'm going to run my opacity all the way down so that you can see like this is what a piece of terrain looks like when you paint it with the grass _1 texture at 1:1. So we kind of want, I kind of think that we'll adjust that to 5.5, and now notice how suddenly it's being displayed at a lot lower resolution, which is why these details pop up. So like when we go to 2.2, you'll see, and 2.2 looks about right for what we want to do. So I'm going to come over here and start the process. And just going to put some highlights like like I'm Bob Ross around here, and in these areas where the texture is like brighter, this is kind of our highlighted area, and so just put a little dab in there, like that. All right, great. Hop over here and do the same. So we have some basic highlights there. This stuff up here, I'm just going to go ahead and erase that action. Alright, now with these two things in place, Um, I'll just show you. Let's look at like what a mud texture. See, this mud texture adds a lot of brightness, so we want to be careful how we use that, or it'll make the object appear misshapen. Because in something so low polygon like this, it gets a lot of its visual detail, obviously, from the textures you paint on there. And if you paint something really bright, it can make it look like a lump or a bulge where you don't want that. So a dirt layer, we're going to go through, and in some of these recessed areas, see my opacity's a little bit too strong, so we're going to back this off to, say, 2.6. Okay, now with the 2.6 I can paint over something for just a little second and it doesn't show up too much, and that's what we want, because we're basically creating shadows and contours to make the rock faces kind of pop out. And so in these lower recessed areas, I'm going through to create the illusion of contour where none actually exists. And that's looking pretty good right there. Maybe a little bit right there. Okay. Great. Well, I think that's all we really need to do just for the second on, painting the terrain pieces. So the next thing that what we're going to do is I'm going to load in some prefab objects, and we're going to just scatter some rocks. Now, something that we're going to be doing initially here is placing them manually, and then I'm going to try and rig one of them into the terrain tool so that I can throw some pebbles and stuff down without having to place the individual pebbles. So here we are in the Highlands part of our project window. The Highland asset is an asset that I've really like, has some really clean objects that we can use, rocks and such, and we can find these under the forest category. So let's just, if we come over here now, when I have the directory highlighted, you can see under the prefabs, and a prefab is just an object. It's a base model that has the minimum number of properties on the right under the inspector. So it's a base model like an FBX or anything else, and then it has the minimum number of things that it needs to be displayed in Unity. And in this case, so just showing you now, we have it highlighted. You can see it consists of a number of things. It's rock, it has a mesh renderer, a mesh filter, all that stuff you don't really need to know about. A mesh collider, this is really important. And then it has these line of distance groups. So an LOD groups basically display at a distance for level of detail and at a distance. And so when you're further away, it creates a more simple model, and this is easier on your processor. So let's look here, and so like here's just an example. This one object has a transform, and we could move it by adjusting these values here, but instead we can use this tool and mess with it, and we'll just kind of spin it at a angle like that. And there, this is what I'm looking for. And the reason why I was looking for this specific piece of terrain is you notice that it matches up with the texture that we're painting over the base terrain, because it's also textured with that, and it's part of the Highlands asset pack. And so that's why is that the authors did a real good job of matching up the textures that you paint onto stuff from all the other textures. So we're just going to place a few of these and keep it from getting too visually redundant. I'm actually going to adjust the transform of a few of these, and we'll just throw them in here right quick and see how this goes. So we're going to drop that right now. Drop a few boulders. Okay, this is a nice little piece. So let's make it larger just by using the scale tool here. Create a little shelf. Let's do that. And you know, obviously the visual effect that we're going for is the ground is eroded away and left, you know, chunks of rock exposed, and this is in this craggy zone. So there we go. Now we're going to go through and place a few of these smaller stones, like they're exposed and poking out. You don't have to do it too many times to create a really good visual effect. I think I want to recess this a little further and then kind of rotate it a bit. All right. And so, you know, here you can place these obviously any way you want, rotate them manually, and you can see that this can be super time consuming based on, you know, how obsessive you are about your placement of things. And so one of the other things that you can do with Unity is you can adjust the scale of various objects. One way you can increase, you know, the efficiency of what you're doing is by not using a different object for every, you know, kind of ledge that you make, but just use one over and over again and adjust its scale. And this allows you to use the function where you basically control D the object. You can duplicate it, drag it over a little bit, rotate it, and now you can begin to fill in areas just a lot quicker. Whereas if you know, every little thing you do, like, you know, I'm going to pick from a menu, everything like that takes time. So we're going to finish painting this up just by using one single object that we're going to rescale and move around. Whenever I first saw this technique being used, I was new to RPG Builder, and I just was in this zone, and I was really amazed at how great this level looked. So I was like, man, I've got to see how they did this. You know, because I was thinking they probably used 100 different types of prefabs, and then whenever I looked in the inspector, I noticed that there was 448 versions of like cliff underscore 3C, and that they had just been repeating with the same cliff object and resizing it. And that was the first time I'd seen that technique being used. Being new to Unity, I just sort of naturally assumed that when making a level you used a whole lot of things to fill up your hierarchy. And you know, I realized, wow, that's not true. You can make a really great looking level or a great looking map just by resizing and one object over and over again at different scales. So So that's kind of what we're doing here. Now you can notice that already this has brought a lot of life to the level. So let's see if we can get the prefab painter to load up like stones, this little object here. So we would do that by you click on the terrain until you, with Unity is a lot of clicking because there's a lot of invisible things that can be in your way. But here we finally highlighted main terrain, and we're going to go here. So I'm going to do edit details, add detail, and I'm going to try and drag this up to see if it works. And it will not work in this case because it doesn't like the LOD component. And so let's use one of the stones that are here just so that you can see. Okay, now notice these are white, pretty ugly. I'm not sure what material they're using, but we're going to try and, oh, I see. I can't adjust that material directly. What I would have to do is see what material that it's using. So let's just see if we can't brute force it and find some rocks that will work with this with the prefab painter, because okay. Alright, so we click on the terrain until we get some terrain tools to pop up. And small rock 02 is the name of what I was trying to place. Small rock underscore 02. So what I'm going to do is, I don't know what package this comes from, so I'm just going to come over here and okay, here we are. Small rock 02. Great. And it does have a little texture there. Let's see what this thing looks like. Alright. Let's try something else. Let's search for pebbles and look at some of these little different types of options we might have for putting some fine details around here. And normally, like when you're doing some tasks, when you go through and do all the detail of one particular level, then you go into a next. But it gets really tedious if you do that on a large map, because you have this large level that you've created, and then you find yourself, oh, okay, now it's time to go through and put pebbles all over the entire planet. So it actually breaks up the monotony if you go ahead and alternate between the different levels of detail that you're working with. So we're gonna, what are these called? Let's see, what are these guys? This is SM Terrain Rubble Pebbles. That's the name of it. So let's click here. Let's see. Alright. Then we're going to click Add. Let's repeat that again. And this gets faster the more, once you build out your full tool set, it gets a lot faster. You start having to, oh, I'm going to spend 2 minutes looking for a prefab, or you're able to do things a lot more quickly. So let's see if we can't get this to work. I'm going to start with something like, okay, great. All right. Yeah, alright, so this is how we could take something like this. Let's see if this works. Now, some of these things are not adhering to the terrain, so I'm going to Control Z. So some of these things, when you use them, you might notice there's little errors, and if we end up having to fix this across a whole map, that will not be fun. So, you know, the best strategy is to paint on something that's not a slope, which, in this case, since we're going to use the terrain tool, why don't we just go along the top here and see what we can. Alright, so let's not use that. Alright. Okay, well this shows you like when you go about using your the prefab painter. Looks like I've got a few terrain errors here, so that's something I would need to fix, or in this case I'll fix it by just removing what I painted on there. But I'm putting a little grass back on top. Okay, and maybe down here at the bottom. Okay. So as you can see, we already brought this cliff face substantially back to life, and we see Control and click. So we're going to hold down Control, and why is it not erasing my rock? There we go. Okay, so you see we've livened up this aspect of the map, and there's a whole lot of the map left to go. But this is literally the process that you use. I like this, but I think it just needs a little bit more. So I'm going to Control D. And alright, well, getting better. There, that's kind of neat. Okay, so here we have now one exposed crag with some of the boulders and things poking out. I'm still not a huge fan of the way that some of that looks, so okay, I like that a lot better. So now what else can you do with the terrain tool? Well, obviously when you load in the prefabs and you're able to get them to work, then you can come over here and paint. Like, I want a bush, and let's see if we can. Don't want to go crazy with all the bushes. I think that's sufficient right there. Let's look at some of this now. We can load in, and on some of my levels, this you have to scroll down through pages of this stuff because I've built it out so much. But I don't know a good way to just import all of the settings from one map into another so that I can use the same prefabs that I've configured with the terrain painter. But that's neither here nor there. So let's just start and show you an example of like some trees. That's a little bit too dense, so we can We have random checked here for tree height. Random with the height. Let's make the brush a little bigger, and let's make tree density. Whoop, it's still very dense. I'm like a 36 level druid over here. Okay, that's good. Alright. Great. So now we've got our trees looking good. Let's boop. I don't want to get careless about that because I don't want to have to go through and clean up flowers that are floating in space. So let me back that off a little bit. And there. Okay. And let's adjust our brush size. Throw some mushrooms down. We could make this an area, part of the map where the player has to go and gather some mushrooms. So, very good. Okay, there you have it. We started with a generic cliff and have now kind of adorned it and made it fit in a lot more, and this is kind of the first level of detail, and as you can see I've got a whole lot more to do, but I thought you might find this interesting. It's one of the reasons that I love working with Unity is because I can just zone out and make these amazing terrains.